Alright, let's dive into something that's both fascinating and a little alarming. Here's the deal. A recent study published in the Journal of the American Geriatrics Society found that older adults taking 5 or more prescription medications face a significantly higher risk of death. Now, before you panic and start tossing out your pill bottles, let's break this down and talk about what it really means. First off, what makes this really interesting is the concept of polypharmacy. That's the medical term for taking 5 or more daily prescriptions. Personally, I think this is one of those issues that's been simmering under the surface for a while, but it's only now starting to get the attention it deserves. We're living longer, which is great, but as we age, our bodies become more complex, and so do our medication lists. The question is, are we over-medicating ourselves in the pursuit of better health? The study, led by Dr. Alexander Chaitorf, analyzed data from nearly 8,000 adults aged 65 and older over an 18-year period. Here's where it gets eye-opening. More than half of the participants were taking medications that put them at higher risk. And the biggest group? Those on 5 or more prescriptions. What many people don't realize is that it's not just about the number of pills, it's about how these medications interact with each other and with our aging bodies. One thing that immediately stands out is the 38% increase in overall mortality risk for those on 5 or more medications. That's a huge number. But here's the kicker, even after accounting for underlying health conditions, the total number of medications was still the strongest predictor of mortality. This raises a deeper question. Are some of these medications actually doing more harm than good? From my perspective, this study highlights a massive gap in how we approach healthcare for older adults. We're so focused on treating individual conditions that we sometimes lose sight of the bigger picture. For example, 37.6% of participants were on medications that could increase the risk of confusion or falls, common issues in older adults that can lead to serious complications. And 11.4% were taking combinations of drugs known to cause major interactions. If you take a step back and think about it, it's like we're playing a high-stakes game of pharmaceutical Jenga. Now, I'm not saying we should stop taking medications altogether. Far from it. But what this really suggests is that we need to be more mindful about how we prescribe and why. A detail I find fascinating is the concept of deprescribing, carefully reducing or stopping unnecessary medications. It's not about cutting corners, it's about optimizing care. Personally, I think this should be a standard part of healthcare for older adults, but it's often overlooked. Another point to consider is the limitations of the study. It only looked at community-dwelling older adults, so we don't know how this applies to those in nursing homes or assisted care facilities. Plus, medication use was only documented for 30 days, which means we're missing the long-term picture. This is important because health conditions and prescriptions can change over time. What this really highlights is the complexity of the issue. It's not as simple as fewer pills equals longer life. In my opinion, the takeaway here isn't to fear medications, but to approach them with a critical eye. If you're taking multiple prescriptions, or if you have older family members who are, it's worth having a conversation with your doctor or pharmacist. Ask why each medication is necessary, whether the dose is still appropriate, and if there are alternatives. What many people don't realize is that our bodies change as we age, and what worked at 65 might not be the best option at 75. So, here's my closing thought. Healthcare isn't one size fits all, especially as we get older. This study is a wake-up call to rethink how we manage medications and prioritize quality of life over quantity of prescriptions. It's not just about adding years to life, but adding life to those years. What do you think? Are we over-medicating? Or is this just the cost of living longer? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective.